Good Friday afternoon to you. Hope your weekend is off to a great start. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. I'm Dave Bacon. A jam-packed show. A little later in the show, we will talk to Marc Weiszer. He is a Georgia Bulldogs beat reporter. We'll talk about all the Bulldogs prospects that the Browns might be looking at in this upcoming draft. We'll also join Bobby DiBiasio from the Cleveland Indians. We'll talk a little bit about a nice fundraiser with a T-shirt in honor of Les Levine, the guy that used to host this show. And we will also talk plenty of Browns, and that's where we begin. The Browns, Andrew Berry, met with the media today. First thing out of the box, Andrew Berry and the Browns picked up the fifth-year options on Baker Mayfield and Denzel Ward ahead of the draft. Berry was asked about picking up those options as well as potentially extending Baker Mayfield.
I think as you all know, we had a deadline by May 3rd. I think both of those players have really just done a really nice job for us over the first 3 years. Both had very strong seasons for us in 2020, and we view both of those guys as young players that are continually ascending and are going to be a big part of what we do as we move forward.
Have you spoken to Baker's representatives about a long-term extension? Where do things stand with that, Andrew?
Yeah, Tom, I think you probably know me well enough. I'm not gonna really talk on that in this setting. I just don't think it's appropriate. But obviously we know both those players are extension eligible.
Andrew Berry talking about a potential fifth-year extension for Baker Mayfield. Time to bring in Jeff Risdon from BrownsWire.com. Jeff, you've heard those comments. Gut feeling, do they get it done with Baker Mayfield this year or do they wait?
I do think they get it done with Baker this year. Berry has to play the diplomat there. He did a very good job of doing that. He's a smart guy. He's there for a reason. He said what he needed to say. He's aware that they're both extension eligible. I won't put words into his mouth, but I will interpret that as we're very aware that an extension is due at some point. There isn't really any urgency to get it done right now with the draft coming up in less than a week. Exercising the option was a bridge. It's a commitment. It shows that obviously they care about Baker. They want him there. They're not giving up on him, nor should they. It was a necessary move that they had to make. It buys them a little bit more time to negotiate, but they could get it done. It could be done 2 weeks after the draft. It could be done when Baker arrives for training camp and he signs the first day that he's there. It could be done just before the regular season. They have ample time to do it. So no real concern about a long-term deal. And yeah, absolutely, I do expect them to get it done.
So you don't think they wait and play the waiting game because in likelihood, if they do that, that costs them money.
Exactly. The price tag only goes up for quarterbacks, even if they don't deserve it. We've seen that in a number of situations around the league. That's how Jared Goff wound up getting out of Los Angeles. They waited too long, and then they paid him, and it cost them. So, yeah, the price tag for Dak Prescott has skyrocketed even after he got hurt. When you're a good quarterback, they're going to pay you to stay no matter what your status is, even if you're coming off of a bad year. Even if Baker comes off a bad year, and we all hope that doesn't happen, that price tag it's only going up.
Yeah, without question. So we're going to deal with a lot of what Andrew Berry dealt with and handled with the media. So interesting thing, he was asked about the defensive tackle situation and potentially bringing back Sheldon Richardson, and Andrew Berry had a real interesting answer. Let's take a listen.
We feel good about it. We feel good about the guys that we currently have on the roster with Andrew Billings, Malik Jackson, obviously Jordan Elliott going into a second year. Like all positions across the draft, there are a number of good young prospects that are going to come into the league. But that all being said, Sheldon is a big loss. He was a big part of what we did last year. Really strong presence in our locker room, and we're very thankful for all the contributions that he had, and that those are big shoes to fill for sure.
Kevin said he's hoping there might be a scenario in which Sheldon can return. Is that something you see as feasible?
Yeah, I think it's certainly possible. Obviously, it's something that has to work for all parties involved. But we like Sheldon. He was a productive member for our team, a big part of our success last year. And if that ends up being the right fit down the line, it's certainly something that we would welcome.
So Jeff Risdon, BrownsWire.com, reaction to that. Do you think there's any way that Sheldon Richardson comes back?
I do. It'll have to be like Barry said, it has to be with the right price tag. It has to be at the right dimensions. This is not something that they're going to do right away. Nor do I think Sheldon wants it to happen right away. He's going to evaluate what he's got. He wants to see if there's better opportunities for him to A, make more money, and B, get more playing time and more significant playing time on a roster of another team that has a chance to win a title. If he's over 30 years old, he's in the position in his career where he really needs to get, if he still wants to be a viable contributor to a title contending team, the options are limited. Cleveland is certainly the best one. He's familiar with the defense. He knows the people around him. He's obviously well-liked. They clearly respect him and want him back. The way that Barry handled that, when he answered the first part of that question, you could almost see the gears turning, like, yeah, they're going to ask me if I want to extend him right away. And he came right back with a very optimistic note. So it certainly sounds like something that both sides are very open to doing. Will it happen? I hope so. They're a better football team with him than without him.
When you look at it, strictly a salary cap move that kind of frees them up to do what they need to do with Denzel Ward, Nick Chubb, Baker Mayfield. I mean, the list goes on and on. Is that strictly a numbers game with Sheldon Richardson, you think?
I certainly think that they will explain it to him that way. Absolutely, yes. And it makes a lot of sense. Even though they haven't done any moves on the outside with it yet, which has a lot of fans sort of, up in the air. Like, why did they do that? They're not better without him. Well, they are rolling cap money over that they're going to use to lock up Baker, lock up Denzel, possibly lock up Nick. There's a lot of mouths to feed, and they didn't necessarily have the highest portions to feed all those mouths. So now they have a lot more to dole out. It's a smart business decision, even if on the surface it looks a little sketchy to cut your best starting defensive interior lineman. Like, it raises eyebrows, but in the long term, I think they definitely have a plan to it. And if part of that plan is to get Sheldon back for half the price that he used to play for, it's going to look brilliant.
Let's move on now. Another area that Andrew Berry addressed today, getting guys that quote-unquote fit the defensive system that Joe Woods wants to play. Let's take a listen to this.
You're right. We always do strive as a front office group to make sure that, we're building the roster in line with the style in which our coaching staff wants to play. Ultimately, our personnel staff, we're an extension of the coaches. And, we want to make sure that we're bringing guys and bringing in skill sets that, marry with Kevin's vision in terms of how he wants to play on the offensive side of the ball, on the defensive side of the ball, and in the kicking game.
Jeff Risdon, do you see that? Do you see Andrew Berry doing that?
Definitely. That's a clear part of what their plan is. That there's obviously good communication between all parties there on what they want to address and the types of players that they're looking for. They're not necessarily looking for the most talented player if he is not a great fit for both the culture and the scheme. And they've done a really good job of finding those guys. They haven't always chased the biggest name at certain places, but I look at it, bringing a guy like Rashard Higgins back, not the most talented receiver, but he's got a great fit in the locker room. He's clearly more valuable to Cleveland than he is to everybody else, and they recognize that. And I think that's the type of thing that Barry's talking about there.
Jeff Risdon from BrownsWire.com, and I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, Andrew Berry tells us the difference between addressing things in free agency and the draft. That's straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Sports for CLE continues. I'm Dave Bacon. We continue talking Browns football with Jeff Risdon from BrownsWire.com. Andrew Berry explained the difference between signing guys and free agents and what the Browns look for in the draft.
I think free agency has a lot less of an impact than maybe, or at least for me, has a lot less of an impact on the draft than is maybe perceived. And that's not to say that it doesn't have some level of influence, but it goes back to what I said earlier, that I really think of the draft as maximizing long-term sustainable impact on the team. And certainly, need or positional value, all of that can play a role in it. But, by no means is it the primary mode, not even close to the primary weighting in terms of a draft decision. Because I think, honestly, that's how teams make mistakes.
Let's welcome back in Jeff Risdon from BrownsWire.com. And Jeff, what do you make of that? That was very interesting, and that is very much what really good franchises generally do.
It's nice to hear that coming out of a Browns general manager instead of, well, we've got, we have to get a wide receiver, we have to get a cornerback, we have to do X and Y in this draft, otherwise we're not going to be able to compete next year. That's not the status of this team, and I think Barry's savvy for recognizing it. He opened up the door there, and this sort of piggybacks on what Kevin Stefanski said earlier this week, or maybe it was last week, but about how their need system isn't necessarily what's going to drive their draft. They're going to look at the best available player. I'll paraphrase them there, at whatever position they think helps them the most in the long term. That opens up the possibilities. It also sort of, in a way, shrinks the board because they're not necessarily taking a guy who might be the most impactful right away in year one. They can take a chance on a project prospect who might not be ready to contribute all that much in 2021, but could pay off in 2022 and 2023 down the road. And it fits into how they fill the roster. If we take a guy this year, who does he replace on the roster in a year or two, potentially, and saving money that way? It's a very different way to look at the draft, and it's fun for that to be Cleveland for once instead of looking at other teams doing that. And we're fishing around, figuring out, the three biggest needs and pigeonholing in the best possible players at each of those spots.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's in order to do that, you have to know what your type of player is, what your long-term outlook for each of the guys is. So there's finally a 1,000 mile up view of what they want this franchise to be. This one was really interesting to me too. He talked about the draft process and the draft board. Let's listen again to Andrew Berry. And I found this one really interesting.
Yeah, I think the draft process is just as much of a selection process. It's also an elimination process. At this point in time, we've gone from about 1,100 prospects in late August that we knew we needed to get familiar with both on and off the field, to a draft board containing 168 players, 114 of which we view as draftable, and another 54 that we view as priority free agents. We use the term collaborative around here a lot, as you guys know, and I think the draft process is, very symbolic of it because there are a number of groups across football operations that contribute very heavily for us to build our board.
Jeff, I was surprised at how few people are on their draft board as draft eligible. Did that ring into your ears as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's shocking. The fact that they started out with over 1,000 is also shocking. I'm a bigger draft nerd than most people are. I've been doing this for a very long time. I looked at maybe 500 people this year, and most years I don't top 600. So the fact that they almost doubled that, obviously they have a robust scouting staff, but still whittling it down that far, that tells you, A, that this isn't necessarily a strong draft, and I would agree with that assessment with Barry. But B, the fact that they're really picky. They have certain guidelines, guardrails, as Barry in the past has called them, that they have to fill. And there's apparently a lot of prospects that will fill a lot of those on other teams that will not fit in Cleveland. And the fact that they have so many priority free agents after that, it means that A, my Saturday night's going to be very busy after the draft is over, and B, that we're going to have to do a lot more research on some of these guys and figure out why necessarily they didn't fit the Browns profile when the Browns bypass them to take a guy that you might not know as well, that I might not know as well. we're going to have to explain that to fans. So, well, maybe this guy just didn't fit what they're looking for, either schematically or culture-wise or age-wise. There's any number of factors that they use to limit their draft board, and they clearly they cut a lot this year. There's not a lot of prospects to choose from. There's 200 and I think there's 272 picks or something like 278 maybe, and there's only 114 on their board. Obviously, they don't pick in every round, but they do have one of those picks at the very end of the board. I wonder if they will still have any of their 114 available when they pick. I believe they have the third to last pick in the draft. Be interesting to see if they have to choose someone that was going to be a priority free agent, or if they trade out if they don't have anybody else that they want to draft.
The other thing I think it says is they know what type of player they want, and that hasn't been the case here in quite a while.
Yeah, they clearly have ideas for exactly what they want at what positions. They have players identified already. That's very good. They're clearly prepared. I wouldn't expect anything less out of Andrew Berry and Paul DiBiasio in this team. They're a fully functionally professional group, and that's also something we've not had a lot of in Cleveland. Not a lot of experience with, unfortunately. Again, it's just so much fun to go into a draft understanding that the team. It's going to be hard for them to screw this up, really. And in the past, there's so many times where, oh my God, don't, no. And we're not like that at all this year. There really isn't anybody that I could feasibly see them taking that I'd, want to throw myself into Lake Erie for.
Yeah, I would agree. Now, the other thing that along those lines in the draft, Andrew Berry addressed kind of what he sees the 26th pick as being and kind of the versatility that they have. Take a listen.
We really go into the mindset of trying to really maximize the long-term impact on our roster. It's less about, call it, filling a need or some level of, instant gratification on the roster, and more about a longer-term focus on the team. So, that all being said, I like where we're picking, and not just at 26, but at 59, 89, 91, 110, and so forth. I think there are plenty of opportunities where we can, add young players that can grow with us, over the next several years.
Again, really interesting. That tells you a little bit about the mindset and the philosophy that the front office has with this draft.
Yeah, not seeking the instant gratification, and possibly not taking the position that appears to be the biggest need, which is either defensive tackle or cornerback or possibly pass rusher. They've left their options open to do long-term improvement on the team. Does that bring in wide receiver into that category? With Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham Jr. With very big contracts going forward, and they're not getting younger. That's something to consider. Are they going to look at Joel Bitonio's not getting younger? He's not getting cheaper. They have any number of more longer term needs, and being able to address those with a premium pick like number 26 overall. Again, it might not ring the bell in 2021, but 2-3 years down the road, you're going to look back and wow, that was a really smart pick. And they've set themselves up perfectly to be in that situation, and it's clear that they want to capitalize on that.
Yeah, and they've done a nice job in free agency to put themselves in that position to be able to do that. Jeff Risdon and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, Jeff is going to give us a couple of guys that are polarizing picks that could be that number 26 pick. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions, or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
Better days are ahead. Be ready with the training you'll need to get a great job. If you or your family has experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Whether you want to improve your skills, get certified, or train for a new career, go to tri-c.edu to check out our programs and resources. So what are you waiting for? Register now for online and on-campus summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Jeff Risdon from BrownsWire.com and I continue to talk Browns and look at that draft. Andrew Berry addressed the cornerback position in this year's draft. Some think the Browns need one.
I think there are good players across all position groups in this class. I think it's a good draft class. And quite honestly, I think there are good players that come into the league every year from the amateur ranks. In terms of corners in general, that's a position that you always want to be deep. No different than other positions that we've discussed in past sessions here. But you can never have enough good cover guys.
And let's bring Jeff Risdon back in. Jeff, Andrew Berry said that a number of times. Give us a couple of guys at the cornerback position that you think are kind of polarizing.
Yeah, first off is Greg Newsome from Northwestern. Really, really talented player. And he might not even last to number 26, but one of the reasons why he would is that he has some injury issues. He played at Northwestern, did a very good job within the Big Ten, but he missed at least 3 games in each of the last 3 years with 3 different injuries. For Cleveland, especially when we were always worried about Denzel Ward and his long-term durability, Greedy Williams missed all of last year with an injury and has some injury issues in his past. I think we're a little sensitive to that, so it sort of makes it a tough sell to bring a guy in. Again, he's a very talented player and would be a great player in Cleveland when he's on the field. But the worry about being on the field, I get why some fans are very shy about taking on Greg Newsome. But again, he's really, really good. But, it can be a tough sell. I personally like him. I would do it, but I get why people would not.
Another guy, and this one's more of a safety from Central Florida. Take us through Richie Grant, what you're thinking with him.
Yeah, Richie Grant is a guy, he's got some tape. If you watch their games, he has some amazing plays, but he also has some plays where you're wondering, like, what's he doing? Is he aware that he's supposed to tackle that guy? Is he aware that he's supposed to be covering that guy? There's some weird lapses on his tape. He's a very good playmaker, and he can go get the ball. He can play safety. He can play your free safety. He can step up into the box a little bit. He can play as your slot corner if you need him to, step up and slide into that role. And that's a position where they could use someone, especially if Troy Hill has to play outside, sort of a versatile chess piece that they can move all over the secondary. They've got a few of those. So I get why he would fit in. But again, the lulls in his tape are disturbing for a guy who's going to be a top 50 pick. I wouldn't see him as the number 26 pick, but I could absolutely see him in the conversation at 59 if he lasts that long. And again, this is another guy I probably would be okay with doing it, but I understand, especially if fans watch like the Memphis game as an example from a couple years ago, be like, I don't know about that guy. But yeah, he can play, but there's a reason why he's not in the first round. Let's put it that way.
Another position that Browns fans have heard ad nauseum that people think they may look at 26, edge rusher. Let's take a listen to what Andrew Berry had to say about the edge rushers.
I think probably a little bit similar to the corner question here. Like I think they're good players, and I truly do believe that there are good players across really every position group in this draft. I think probably every head coach and general manager in the NFL will tell you that they love to have as many pass rushers as possible. We're no different in that regard.
Jeff, there you hear it. Give us a couple of polarizing names, and we've heard a lot of them as we've listened to these mock drafts.
And quite honestly, just about every edge rusher in this draft is somewhat polarizing because you can always find a reason why not to take any of these guys. One of the ones that I want to focus on is Penn State's Jason Oweh. Phenomenal athlete, tested off the charts, is one of those guys, he did his workout without his shirt on and nobody minded. He's a ridiculous physical specimen in the vein of Myles Garrett, that type of special athlete. But he didn't get a single sack in college, and that's really a tough sell. Yes, I know that Penn State wasn't the greatest defense in the world, and they don't always have the greatest coaching there. But my goodness, get one. People will stumble into a sack here and there, and it didn't happen for him at all. He's fairly one-dimensional too. He doesn't play the run all that well. He doesn't move backwards well at all for the athleticism that he brings. So again, a very tantalizing athlete and long-term prospect, which might tie into what Andrew Berry was talking about earlier. But there's no results there at all, and that makes it a very tough sell at 26.
Yeah, that's a guy that ran like a 4.35 40, so at 272 pounds. So yeah, like you said, how do you not trip over a guy and get a sack?
Yeah, Joe Jackson stumbled into a fumble recovery sack last year. You think you think a guy like that would have come up with at least a half a sack, but no, it didn't happen. So again, it's not all his fault. He didn't get the greatest scheme or coaching help at Penn State. No offense to Nittany Lion fans out there, but I think you all know you can do a little bit better than what you had last year. And it's tough, man, because there is a lot of talent. By all accounts, he's a guy who wants it, who will go after it and is working on it. But you got to see some results sooner or later, and the sooner it hasn't happened.
So another one is Gregory Rousseau, one of the guys from Miami of Florida. Tell us about him.
19 and a half sacks and plays behind the line of scrimmage in 2019. Phenomenal production. Sort of the opposite of Oweh, really, in that he doesn't necessarily have the greatest athleticism. He definitely checks the boxes that you would look for at the position, but he's not an athletic freak. But he had production off the charts at Miami. The problem is he only did it for 1 year. He's only played, I think he's played 14 college football games. He opted out of last season. This is a guy who in his freshman season broke his ankle after 17 plays. So we have a very, very limited scope of work to look at. There's not a lot of game film. He didn't go up against a lot of good pass protecting offensive lines when he was in college. I'll say that his production was somewhat artificially inflated because he wound up as an edge rusher attacking the inside a lot. He would cross the face of the tackle to attack the guard, which is generally the weaker position, especially in college football, and had a lot of success doing that. And the guards just simply weren't athletic enough to keep up with him. In the NFL, you're going to see better offensive lines. I think we've seen that in Cleveland, the ability to have the transition from tackle to guard and passing the pass rusher along. They do that a lot better at the NFL level than they do at the college level. So there are reasons to worry about that his production was a little fluky. But again, the guy finishes what he starts, and that's a very impressive trait. Again, you're looking at two prospects that are on the opposite end of the spectrum in terms of production. And I don't think Rousseau is necessarily going to be in consideration at 26. The impression that I've gotten from most people is that he's more of a second-round pick, in part because people are scared of it and the fact that they didn't see him last year. But he's certainly a guy that if Andrew Berry is looking long-term, if they feel like that they can modify what he's got and get that sort of consistent production out of him, he's absolutely got to be on their board.
Jeff Risdon from Brownswire.com and I are going to take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, Jeff and I are going to look at some Pro Football Focus rankings for rosters in the NFL, analytics driven. Browns among the best in the NFL. We'll be right back on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Welcome back to Sports for CLE. I'm Dave Bacon. We continue talking Browns with Jeff Risdon from BrownsWire.com. Jeff, Pro Football Focus, analytics-driven website that the Browns kind of base a lot of stuff on, or at least pay attention to, ranked the rosters before the draft. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, number 1. Cleveland Browns, number 2. Kansas City Chiefs, number 3. What do you make of it?
I like it, Dave. That's great. Obviously, Tampa Bay deserves to be number 1. They won the Super Bowl. They're bringing back all 22 starters. Yeah, they're the first. The fact that Cleveland ranks above the team that beat them in the playoffs and represented the AFC in the Super Bowl, I think that says a lot about how good the future is for Cleveland and how stable this is. This wasn't a one-shot deal for Cleveland last year, winning one playoff game, getting to the divisional round, fighting valiantly and then losing and then going away for 5 years. That's not what is happening with Cleveland. They have a very solid young roster that they didn't really lose many people of consequence. And the one of them that they did, Sheldon Richardson, which we just talked about, was by choice, and he could come back. All the key place figures are coming back. You know, you're bringing back your quarterback. You've got Myles Garrett coming back. He should be fully recovered from COVID by next year. As an impact player. They brought in Jadeveon Clowney. They brought in Takk McKinley, Malik Jackson. They're bringing in veterans who are smart fits for what they're doing. They're going to have Odell Beckham Jr. back on the outside. Jarvis Landry's back. They have great tight end room. The offensive line is top shelf. Yeah, they deserve the credit that they're getting. The fact that they're ranked number 2, I think that's more a reflection on questions about the other teams more than anything about that says about Cleveland. Kansas City, their offensive line is in shambles. Now, they did just make a trade. They picked up Orlando Brown from Baltimore, which helps them quite a bit. I think it hurts Baltimore, too, as a corollary, which I don't think we'll mind in Cleveland very much. You know, but some of the other teams that are, you know, they don't have the strength of the offseason and the consistency and continuity on their roster to challenge what the Browns offer. It really is a testament to what Barry and company are building, and the fact that they're building it right and building it so it's built to last. And I think that for me, that's the most important thing. I loved having one playoff win. I like it going into every season, understanding that there's a chance for multiple playoff wins, and that's exactly where the Browns are right now, and that's where we all want them to be. We couldn't ask for more. And I think you mentioned a very important point. Very young. A lot of these guys are on or finishing up their first contracts. That's generally when you're getting into the prime of the career in the NFL. Absolutely. You want guys peaking, and the fact that they're all set to peak together, you know, all those first round picks, you know, the extension or the fifth year options that they picked up on Baker and Denzel, you know, Nick Chubb is from that draft class too. Miles was from a year before it. You know, they've got the offensive linemen that are young, or you know, even Jack Conklin as one of the veterans, he's still got 3 or 4 more years within his prime at right tackle. They really are built to congeal around each other, when all these guys, when their key players are all hitting their prime together. You saw Seattle do a brilliant job of doing that with Russell Wilson back when they were challenging for the Super Bowl every year, when they still had the Legion of Boom together. And then it sort of broke apart because they wound up having different guys at different stages. We're going to jump off that bridge when we get to it, but we're a long ways away from getting to that bridge just yet. we're still going up on that ladder right now, and it's a lot of fun to see. All the enthusiasm and the national recognition and respect for this team, because it as you know, it's been a long time coming.
Jeff Risdon, great stuff. Jeff is from brownswire.com. I am sure we will be talking to you next week as it is draft week. Thursday, first round, second and third rounds on Friday, and then the rest of the draft on Saturday. Jeff, as always, appreciate the time. Great stuff. Thanks very much.
My pleasure, and go Browns.
All right, Jeff Risdon from brownswire.com. Be sure to check him out. He has some really good stuff on the draft as well as the Browns roster and the like. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. We turn our attention to some prospects from the University of Georgia. Bulldogs beat reporter Marc Weiszer joins us, and he will talk about 4 of those Bulldog prospects that the Browns might be looking at. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions, or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
Better days are ahead. Be ready with the training you'll need to get a great job. If you or your family has experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Whether you want to improve your skills, get certified, or train for a new career, go to tri-c.edu to check out our programs and resources. So what are you waiting for? Register now for online and on-campus summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Sports4CLE continues. We're going to shift our attention to a few of those prospects that we've talked about in the mock draft, specifically from the University of Georgia. We are pleased to be joined by Marc Weiszer, who is the Georgia Bulldogs beat reporter for the Athens Banner-Herald. Marc, always appreciate the time. Let's begin with the talented edge rusher. A few mock drafts have Azeez Ojulari mocked to the Browns. Some have him going even higher than 26 in the first round. Tell me what you have seen from Ojulari.
Yeah, he's a guy that played 2 seasons and some change in his redshirt year. Was coming off an ACL injury, his senior year of high school in the playoffs. And so there was a lot of anticipation for him to kind of come out and play an extensive role. And that came in the Sugar Bowl as a true freshman. But with the 4-game red shirt, he only really played 2 seasons at Georgia. But you saw in that first game, now he wasn't finishing against Texas and Sam Ehlinger in that game, but he was getting to the backfield. And so he stepped it up the next couple of years. I think it was 4.5 sacks as a redshirt freshman. And last year, led the SEC in sacks. And, really with the way Georgia plays, they like to put those corners on an island. They really needed a guy like Ojulari to finish and get to the quarterback. And he's going to be desirable there, probably in the 20s, as you mentioned, with the Browns at 26. I would imagine they'd be in the running there.
What's have you seen the dramatic increase from freshman year to sophomore year, and is there a trajectory that you think is going to continue to go up? A young guy by all accounts.
Yeah, I don't think he turns 21 until this summer. So, is a young guy. And there was some speculation that he would even sit out the bowl game, which is kind of, the fashionable thing to do for a guy that's projected in the first round. But he played and probably made himself some money. I think he had 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles in that game against Cincinnati, one of the better teams that Georgia saw outside of Alabama and Florida. I think that was a very wise decision on his part. And get him in a right scheme and 3-4 outside linebacker, probably has potential to become more of an every down guy than just a pure pass rusher. But certainly that's his bread and butter. His skill set is getting towards the quarterback.
Now, if people wanted to put him, more as a hand in the dirt kind of guy and a defensive end, does he have the type of frame that you could add? You mentioned he's a young guy, so the natural aging process will have him fill out. Could you put some extra weight on him and just make him a D end and say go get the quarterback?
That's a good question. I think he's up to about 245, 250. Around the pro days. So there's probably potential at his age to get even bigger, but you don't want to take away his quickness, and that's what he does very well. And probably I think there's a certain scheme that he'd be better at, and it probably will depend on. I'm not sure if he can keep on that weight, if he can get up another 15 or 20 pounds, but certainly at his age, there's probably that potential.
When you look at him, is that a guy you think, yeah, boy, he could really do some damage as a pass rusher?
Certainly, with the game changing, you don't need necessarily the run stopper as much. You want a guy that can really get after the quarterback, and that's what he can do. And he's probably serviceable out in space. If he needs to be covering tight ends and guys out of the backfield.
You also have a couple of really talented, pretty highly thought of cornerbacks. Tyson Campbell, tell me a little bit about Campbell, and we'll get to his cornerback mate here in a minute. But what about Campbell jumps out?
He's got the size that the NFL teams probably like, and certainly the speed. Now, we'll talk about Eric Stokes a little bit later. Not as much of a pure burner as Stokes, but was a big-time recruit, 5-star out of American Heritage High School in Plantation, Florida, and really a loaded defense there. The Alabama cornerback's going to be up ahead of him. Was a high school teammate, but Campbell had his ups and downs. I mean, the Alabama game, he got beaten with some big plays, but he certainly is a guy that will fight for contested balls. And I think what he needs to work on is probably playing the ball. A lot of times he looks a little bit out of position in terms of when the ball's in the air, and that's something getting with the right position coach also could continue to mature in that aspect.
Is he a guy that you look at, and you mentioned Georgia kind of likes to put their corners on an island? Is he a guy that has that mindset that I can pretty much cover anybody?
Yeah, I mean that's one thing. Even though he did have some ups and downs, he also made his share of big plays, and he brushed it off pretty fast. Is going to let a touchdown go against him on the next drive. He can bounce back pretty fast.
Marc Weiszer, the Georgia Bulldogs beat reporter for the Athens Banner-Herald, talking some Georgia Bulldogs draft prospects. Let's move to his running mate at cornerback, Eric Stokes. So what do you see from him?
Eric's a guy that, as a redshirt freshman at Missouri, really kind of announced himself to, college football, I guess, with a block punt that was returned for a touchdown. 3-star recruit out of Atlanta that was or outside Atlanta that was a kind of a late addition to a signing class, closer to the traditional signing day, and people didn't know much about him except they knew he could run. He was a 100 and 200 meter track guy at Eastside High School, and really developed. When DeAndre Baker went to the NFL as a first-round draft pick, he was the guy that stepped in the next year and became a full-time starter. And on the opposite side of Campbell, and arguably, even though he wasn't as highly recruited as Campbell, probably had a more productive, career in terms of, teams probably went away from him a little bit more.
So which of these guys do you think has the higher ceiling? Which is the safer pick? Is it the same guy? Take me through when you look at these two corners who most people think, as we were talking, could slide up into the back half of the first round, certainly second or third round guys. Who is the higher ceiling? Who is the safer pick?
I think so the Browns have picked 59 in the second round. I think Campbell is more likely to not be available there than Stokes. The safer pick is probably Campbell. Campbell could have more upside, but I think Stokes has probably a lower or a higher floor. I think he's going to be dependable. And he had 4 interceptions last year. I think Campbell might have had 1. But I think Tyson's shown that while he can match up well, and a lot of times he can also take in a little bit more of a rocky ride. I think Stokes a little bit more consistent. If you're looking for a guy that you feel safer with just because of his measurables, that's probably Tyson Campbell.
All right, before I let you go, I'm intrigued by the 343-pound mass of guard, Ben Cleveland. We like the last name here, and he showed he can move. He put up a pretty impressive 40 time. Take me through that pro day and what teams are getting in Ben Cleveland.
Yeah, Big Country is what he's known as. Came from a town about 45 minutes outside of Athens, and we actually did a draft diary with him at the Athens Banner-Herald. So he told me before the pro day that he was kind of aiming for the combine record. Now it wasn't a combine; it was at pro day for the bench press, which was 49. He didn't come quite close to that. I think it was 30 was the number he got, but I think he was kind of trying to draw some attention to himself. Still had a good pro day. I mean, 30 is a very good number for the 225 bench reps, and also ran about a 5.0 40 for his size. Very impressive. Dealt with some injuries during his career, but pretty dependable as it wound down, and it was a fixture last season. Big guard that can pull for his size still as well, and I think probably a pretty safe guy that you can count on to have a 4 or 5 year career at the minimum, and give you what you want in terms of size, certainly at the next level.
Marc Weiszer, the Georgia Bulldogs beat reporter for the Athens Banner-Herald. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Marc. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Good to be with you.
All right, Marc Weiszer from the Athens Banner-Herald. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we will be joined by the Indians' Bob DiBiasio. A special T-shirt honoring Les Levine available locally. We'll talk about that, as well as what's going on at Progressive Field. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Life is starting to get back on track, and you can too. If you or your family have experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Safely get the in-demand degree or training you need with online and on-campus classes. Go to tric-edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Welcome back to Sports for CLE. I'm Dave Bacon. Longtime viewers know that Sports for CLE is the extension of the More Sports and Les Levine show, and we're going to talk about something that's near and dear to the hearts of everybody involved with Sports4CLE. GV Art and Design has created a T-shirt that will benefit charity in honor of Les Levine. Let's welcome in Bobby DiBiasio. Bobby is a longtime friend of the show, a longtime friend of Les's as well. And Bobby, you are involved with this as well. The proceeds will go to benefit the Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame, and that's something I know Les was a huge supporter of. Used to talk to him about it regularly.
Yes, both Les and I on the board of the Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame. Les had an incredible passion for the Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame, and what a remarkable tribute that George Vlasic, his team, is doing with this How Come Quickies T-shirt that they created. You know, they do a wonderful job of just celebrating the city of Cleveland and all that we are about, more than just sports. And so nice of GV Art to do this with some of the proceeds going to the Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame and some of the philanthropic, youth-oriented sports initiatives that the organization is involved with. And again, to continue to foster the legacy of our friend Les Levine.
Yeah, and let's take another look at that shirt. We showed it to you real quickly, and people that are fans of Les, like we are, will love it. You know, there's a part of it that says, you see the How Come Quickies, which Les was famous for. You see the great show and today, one of his catchphrases. And then on the back, I absolutely love the touch there with, of all the T-shirts I've ever worn, this is the most recent. That is so Les Levine. George nailed it with that.
Yes, he did. And Les's son, Jeremy, had a huge role in this as well. And again, just a wonderful way to foster the legacy of Les Levine. You know, George, when he was known as a little guy from Lakewood, Ohio, with his Etch-a-Sketch, Les would have him on the show on occasion. And so they've had a long-standing relationship. And I think this is near and dear to George's heart. And so GV Art, with their incredible creativity, was certainly a driver and a creator with Les's son, Jeremy, in this project. I remember, David, when George was, again, a youngster, and he'd come into our dugout and he would play with his Etch-a-Sketch, and he'd sit there and either do Baerga or Alomar, and then all the players would come over and say, you know, I want one of me too. He was such a hit with that Etch-a-Sketch, and obviously turned that creativity of his into a thriving business. But a salute to GV Art and Jeremy for coming up with a real fun concept, and then wanting to help the Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame with our youth-oriented sports initiatives.
So you can buy those at GV Art's website. And if you buy one and you email us a picture, you can do a How Come Quickie if you want. We will use it in the show just to show off what we're doing here with Les Levine. You can see, you see at the bottom how to get a hold of us, sports4cle@gmail.com. Email us those pictures and we will use them. Again, a great cause. The Cleveland Sports, Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame benefits the proceeds of those, and Bobby very involved in that. All right, let's turn our attention to the Indians. Middle of a 4-game series against the Yankees tonight. It's Logan Allen going against Jordan Montgomery. I know you're excited because more and more fans get to come into the ballpark. You get to bring back some of the fan favorites. Tell me where we're at, what's going on over at Progressive Field, Bobby.
Well, you said, yes, we're right in the midst of a 4-game set with the New York Yankees. Then the Minnesota Twins come into town for 3. We have the ending of this 10-game homestand, well, 9 games since we had a postponement, will be next Wednesday with an afternoon game. So people love those weekday day games. There's still ticket availability for the Minnesota Twins. But when the calendar turns to May, we're going to be able to increase from 30% capacity to 40%. That goes from a little over 11,000 to 14,000 for the month of May. And in the month of May, we're going to actually begin the promo calendar, the things that our fans love, coming to the ballpark and getting that added value with Sugardale Dollar Dogs and fireworks and the $2 beers and the pregame parties out in center field. Go to Indians.com/tickets to check out the ticket availability for May, as well as the promo calendar that has been put in place for the month of May. The rain out against Chicago the other night is a traditional doubleheader on Memorial Day. So those of you who are wondering what to do on the holiday, well, you get 2 7-inning ball games against the White Sox. So check that out on your schedule as well. Indians.com/tickets is the place to go.
We're talking to Bobby DiBiasio, Senior Vice President of Public Affairs for the Cleveland Indians. Bobby, how excited are the players to have fans back in the stands? Whenever you talked to them, you kind of got the feeling it just wasn't the same playing in that era of the pandemic a season ago.
Well, those cardboard cutouts, David, don't make a lot of noise. I can tell you they don't make a lot of noise. Not only the players, but our live entertainment crew that's headed up by Kelly Dredge and Nick Gambone. And, that group just so excited that they're able to do their thing to live people, to fans in the stands, to create an atmosphere. And it certainly adds a bounce to the step to the players. Even though fans are scattered around the ballpark, they still make noise. There's still an atmosphere. And they just are so appreciative that they don't have to play in front of cardboard cutouts anymore, and that our fans are allowed back in the ballpark. And as this moves further down the line, a couple months ago, the governor indicated possibly 100% capacity by early July. Let's hope that stays true. We have a big 4th of July weekend homestand against the Houston Astros. It'd be awesome if we were able to welcome people back in huge crowds at Progressive Field on the 4th of July weekend. So we'll keep an eye on that. But for the month of May, we're increased to 14,000 again. Indians.com/tickets to check out your ticket availability and the promo schedule.
Bobby DiBiasio, as always, appreciate the time. Thanks for talking with us about what's going on with the More Sports and Les Levine T-shirts that are available and how it benefits, GV Art, and they're doing a great job to benefit the Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame. Bobby, appreciate the time. When we talk to Bobby, we know great weather's around the corner and baseball's back. So, Bobby, thanks very much. Appreciate it, sir.
Thank you, David. Take care of yourself. Go Tribe.
All right. Look forward to seeing you over at the ballpark. Bobby DiBiasio, Senior Vice President of Public Affairs for the Indians. That'll do it for us on this edition of Sports4CLE. You see, if you want to get a hold of us, voicemail of truth and reason, 216-200-6650, sports4cle@gmail.com is the email address. Next week, a full week as the NFL Draft is right around the corner. It is draft week. We will be talking plenty of Browns, plenty of Indians right here on Sports4CLE. Be sure to join us. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday, everyone.